Okay, so let's start with an artist that you all already know. She is one of our amazing librarians at Gilchrist, Mrs. Spangler. She is a textile artist, which means that she loves to work with materials such as fabric, yarn, and thread to create her own works. She creates works that are both two-dimensional and three-dimensional. Her work is filled with beautiful patterns and textures. Let's take a look. Now make sure next time you see Miss Spangler that you tell her that you got to see her artwork and it is beautiful. Now let's look at the artist Carly Neel. She is from Chicago but studied at one of the best art colleges in America, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and she now lives in Portland, Oregon. She is also a textile artist and one of her specialties is weaving. Weaving is when you create a fabric by interlacing different types of threads. Looking at her work, you can see how she interlaces her threads in different ways to get different patterns and designs. To make large weavings, she uses what is called a loom. A loom is usually made of wood and depending on how big your work is, can be very, very large. Carly's work is beautiful, bright, and extremely detailed. Can you guess how long it takes to make these kinds of works? If you said a long time, you are right. These take countless of hours and hard work to make these beautiful artworks.
All right, so I'm gonna start first with my cereal box. Now, you only need to use one big side. So you can see it has these tabs. Now I cut it open. I've already cut my piece out, but you're gonna cut it so you have one large rectangle, just like I have, okay? And you're gonna flip it to the side that is the brownish side, okay? And what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to be taking my ruler and I'm going to lay it horizontally. If you don't remember what horizontally means, it means from side to side, okay? And what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to use a Sharpie to draw my lines. You guys are going to use pencil. I'm only using Sharpies so that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside from the edge of my box, and I'm gonna make a mark at 1 inch. So I'm gonna make a mark right there, okay? Now on the same side, I'm gonna go to the end, and this time I'm gonna put the edge on 1, and I'll go to the very edge, just like that, and I made a mark. Now, that is where our line is gonna go. It's gonna go from this line to this line, and I'm gonna do multiple lines going all the way across. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm first gonna take my ruler, and now I'm going to make sure that my board is vertical and my ruler is horizontal. I'm gonna do this in the middle, okay? In the middle of my board, and I'm gonna do just a little dash at every 1/2 inch mark. So I'm gonna start from 0, and between 0 and 1, where that big line is on my ruler, I'm gonna make a little mark. Then I'm gonna make a little mark at 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, and 7. And I'm gonna stop at 7 because I do still want a little bit of room on the edge of my paper, okay, or on the edge of my box, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is the line at the top and the bottom that I made earlier, I'm gonna lay my ruler flat horizontally, okay? And I'm just gonna draw a little line just like that, all the way across, so that I cross my little tick mark that I made. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip my paper back this way, and at each little mark, that's where I'm gonna line my ruler up. So I'm gonna line my ruler up right there, and I'm gonna have it go straight across. So I'm gonna take my marker, and from the lines that we just made, I'm gonna go along my ruler through that little tick mark all the way to the other side. Just like that, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make all of my lines going straight down. All right, so now that I have all of my lines, what I'm going to be doing is I am going to be cutting on the middle lines, okay? So I'm always going to start and cut on that line. I'm never going to go past these two vertical lines I have because we want space on the end. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll be right back. All right, boys and girls, so once I have my cardboard cut, my lines are cut, it should look like this, where each little individual strip comes out a little bit, but it doesn't go all the way to the edge. So you can see I did not cut this little section or this section, okay? Now, this is what we call a loom, okay? Now, ours is we made our own loom. A lot of times looms are made of wood and they're really, really big. We have some in class. We were supposed to use them this year, but we will just have to wait until next year, which is totally fine. So with your makeshift loom, I'm now gonna take that and I'm gonna put it off to the side. I am gonna take my fabric that I have and I am going to start cutting it into strips, okay? Now, make sure before you get any type of material and start cutting it up that you have your mom and dad's permission, okay? Don't just grab a shirt out of your drawer or a pillowcase off the bed and decide that you're gonna cut it up. Please, please, please get permission first, okay? So this is my scarf, so I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna start chopping it. Okay, so I'm just gonna take some scissors and like I said, I'm just gonna cut some strips. Sometimes if you get a good cut, you can also just rip it. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not with this material. Okay, now make sure that you're not just using a regular t-shirt. If you are using some type of clothing, you wanna make sure that it is something woven. Now that's something that I learned from Miss Spangler. However, you do not have to use a fabric. If you don't have any scraps of fabric or old t-shirts that you're not going to use or anything like that, you don't have to. You can use a magazine, you can use construction paper, you can use whatever you have in your house, okay? You can even make your loom out of construction paper. You do the same thing, it's just a little bit thinner, but you can definitely do it that way. So here's one strip. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see it's all kind of chunky and messed up, but that's all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut a few strips of this and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I have a few scraps or a few strips of my old scarf, I'm gonna grab my loom again, okay? Now, what I'm gonna be doing is weaving, and with weaving, there's different techniques that you can do, but we're gonna do the over-under, okay? Because we are beginners, we're just learning how to do this. So, I'm always gonna start at the bottom, okay? And you can choose if you start over or start under, okay? But I'm gonna start over, so I'm gonna go over the first one, under the second, and back through. And I pull it a little bit. I actually like to pull it all the way, just so that it's already there, okay? So you can see I went over, under, and you can see like that strip that I went under, it's now sticking on top. And I'm gonna keep doing that all the way. So I just went under, so now I'm gonna go over, pull, and then come back under. Now I'm gonna go over. So I'm just gonna keep doing that all the way to the end. If I can get it through. The first one's always kind of the hardest. And my strips could probably be a little bit thinner just because my lines on my looms are a little bit thinner. But it's up to you. It'll still work with how I did it. But again, just going back, under, over, under, over. Sometimes you can even use, if one of your parents sews, you could use like a big needle and thread your material through the big needle and use that. My now fourth graders, it would be kind of like how we did with our sewing project last year, okay, where we used the paper with holes in it. It would be the same thing. Awesome. So now I have a whole strip, and you can kind of pull it to adjust it, okay? And I can even cut that off and make it another strip later if I wanted to. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab another strip. And so I started, this is my first one. So if I started on my first one and I went over, for my first one on here, I'm gonna start under, okay? So all the ones that are sticking up now are gonna have fabric on them for our next one. So let me show you. So I started over, so I'm gonna start under this time. And I'm gonna pull it, okay, just like that. And now I'm gonna go over under just like I was doing. There we go. Oops, I just hit my camera. Sorry, friends. Okay, now I'm gonna go that way. So you can kind of see already, if I was to pull this, you can see that they're already opposites. So you can see that on one it's empty, but on my second one it has fabric on it. So you're gonna do that over and over and over again. You're gonna alternate. And sometimes it helps to write on the side, or like maybe do polka dots. Maybe do like a polka dot for over, that's under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, and then that one would be under. Okay, so you can always do a little mark, and then sometimes that helps you so you know how you're starting. But I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward, and I'm gonna do this all the way across until I have a full board. All right, so here is my finished weaving. I love it. Something that you can always do is you can always go back into these like spaces here, and you can decorate it, color it, paint it, whatever you want. If you flip it to the other side, it also looks really cool. I used a Cheerios box, so you can kind of see the Cheerios a little bit, but I love that it's yellow and pink. It makes it so nice and bright. So you can also always paint your box or use a paper and make it like those textured papers that we've talked about in previous videos. You can make it your own pattern paper. You can use Zentangles. You can use pattern paper if you have some at your home, like scrapbook paper. But I will say this does take some time, so don't get frustrated. Just try your best, okay? It took me a little bit to do this because you really have to concentrate on going over, under. And if these lines are too small for you, these were 1/2 of an inch. You can always make it a full inch, okay? And if you make it a full inch, you'll have less of these, but they'll be bigger, okay? And it's a lot easier to weave in and out. So kindergarten, first grade, maybe even some second graders, you might want to do the 1 inch instead of the 1/2 inch. But I can't wait to see your guys' work. I hope you really enjoyed seeing our own Miss Spangler, the librarian, her artwork. She's amazing. And she also has given me, she made a PowerPoint for you guys. So I'm gonna make sure I add that to this week's lesson. So if you don't want to follow along with the video and you just want words written, directions written out, and pictures, I will add that so you guys can use that to look at. All right, so make sure you send me your weavings. I can't wait to see pictures of them. Happy creating.